Is Dr. Copper a communist? Hello and welcome to today's Daily Blitz. Now, in Tuesday's Daily Blitz, I said that while there's never a good time to have an epidemic, it's a really bad time for China to have an epidemic. And this is because the rest of the world has started to realize just how antagonistic the Chinese Communist Party can be. When the fallout from the coronavirus hits, the world is going to realize just how tightly wound the entire global economy has been around China. Now, in today's video, I'd like to show you just how strong that influence is, and specifically in the commodity space. Because ultimately, in the global economy, even if you're a service-based country, so you don't make much, you only do services for other people, like the UK, for example, ultimately, stuff still needs to be made. And over the last 20 years, more and more and more of that stuff has been made in China, to the point where the entire commodities space has really almost become a proxy for China as a whole. So, take a look at this table you can see on your screen now. And this is a comparison of just how much of the world's commodities were consumed by China back in 2002 and then with 2019. And some of these results are simply spectacular. So take aluminium, for example. So while back in 2002, China was still a large buyer of aluminium, it was a large marginal buyer, you could say, it is now the majority buyer. This is almost 60% of the world's aluminium is being consumed by China. Then take iron ore, for example. So China was consuming a huge amount of iron ore in 2002, a fifth of the world's global supply, and yet that is over 60%. We're talking 64% of the world's iron ore is being consumed by China. And then take Dr. Copper, for example. Now, Dr. Copper is particularly important because it is used by investors simply as a measure for global trade growth. So when the global economy is growing somewhat and things are being shipped here and there, you would imagine an awful lot of demand for copper, simply because there is so much copper in all of the things that we normally use. So copper is often used as a proxy for global economic growth in general. A strong copper price is often just used as sort of a byline, as it were, for a strong global economy. It's often used for inflation expectations as well. But as you can see, China's consumption of copper has tripled since 2002, and it now consumes half of the world's copper. So Dr. Copper, effectively, is in a way working for the Chinese Communist Party, because of course, economic growth in China is largely dictated by the Chinese Communist Party, and it is them who are responsible for engineering all of this GDP growth that we've had for the last several decades. So when investors turn to Dr. Copper to have a look at what's going on in the world, really what they're looking at, or the majority of what they're looking at, is really just what's going on in China. And interestingly, as you can see on this chart, the copper price is now starting to trend in line with a China ETF, which runs by the ticker FXI. So the copper price has become a proxy for Chinese economic growth, just as the Chinese stock market has become a proxy for Chinese economic growth. So just to summarize, when I say that the world is going to really realize just how tightly wound the global economy is around China, and this is just one aspect of what I'm talking about as well. The entire commodities space, as you can see on that table, has now become incredibly China-driven. That's something to bear in mind if you ever use commodity prices in your own analysis of what's going on in the global economy. But that sums up today's Daily Blitz. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell below. It really helps out the channel. We'll see you in the next one.